Hi, Daniel. In a few words, can you talk to me about the story of this film?
Yeah, it's a duel, almost like a Western set in a Berlin bar between two men, strangers it seems, but then we realize they're neighbors who live in the same house but come from two different worlds. So one is a very narcissistic and successful, or he thinks he's very successful, actor who's very full of himself and who's not aware really, not interested in his environment, not even interested in his family really. And then you have a neighbor from the former East, a local guy who's probably always been living in the same neighborhood, and who is struggling to find his place in this modern world. So it's the clash between those two. I always saw it a bit like a Western without weapons. The words are the weapons.
What should be for you a good acting direction? What can you tell us about your work as a director and an actor with Peter Kurth?
Yeah, I mean, for me it was an absolute dream to be able to direct something. I'd had this desire for a long time, you know. And as a film actor, not to be excluded from any of the parts of filmmaking, to be involved in the writing, working on it with the scriptwriter Daniel Kehlmann, to execute it the way you want to do it, the editing, etc. So that was a marvelous experience, and I wanted to direct something in a very contained world. I wanted to do a huis clos, so it was very much about the dialogue and about the actors, and it's especially it's about these two men. So I needed, for my first film, the best actor I could think of to play that part of of Bruno, and I thought about Peter Kurth from the beginning. This was my first choice, and I never actually had a plan B. I asked the scriptwriter, who would you consider? He said Peter Kurth. So we both had the same idea and had him in mind when we were working on the script. So he accepted to do it, sent me a letter after 24 hours, and that was a huge relief.
You are working with famous directors such as Anthony and Joe Russo, Christian Caron, José Padilla, Julie Delpy, Michael Winterbottom, Paul Greengrass, and others. You are also the screen incarnation of the character Baron Helmut Zemo in the Captain America. What these films brings you to make this one?
Yeah, all these very different and diverse experiences had an influence on this film. I was inspired by most of the projects I did, and it also encouraged me to do that step. You know, Julie Delpy, for example, I always admired her for her multi talent. You know. Actress, director, writer, sometimes she even composes the music, and she also encouraged me to try it myself. You know, that was a very important influence. Talking about Western, you know, the cinema of Quentin Tarantino, of course, had a strong influence on me. The fact that I moved to Berlin has something to do with Goodbye Lenin. So if I hadn't done this film, I probably wouldn't have done my first my debut.
What was the most difficult scene for you to shoot and play in this film?
Difficult. The most difficult part to shoot in the film. Well, there was different complications. I mean, we were hit by the pandemic, for example, so we couldn't shoot these scenes outside very easily. That was kind of complicated because of the situation as it was. Then the only thing I found tricky is to direct myself. So I fully relied on the director of photography and the assistant director to have a honest and blunt judgment and opinion by them, because that I've sometimes found difficult. It wasn't difficult to direct Peter. Also in the double function as director and actor, that worked fine. But judging yourself was tricky sometimes.
The editing of your first film is excellent, and the plot keeps us on the edge of your seat from the first minute to the last minute. Can you tell us about the collaboration with the screenwriter Daniel Kehlmann and the editor Marty Craig on this film?
Yes. I mean, one director, I think it was Wolfgang Becker who did Good Berlin, told me very early on, if you do a film, you have to make sure to make a good casting of the actors, but also of the crew. And because then you are able to delegate. And this was something crucial and for me, doing my first film, to rely on the expertise of so many, talented people. And it started with Daniel Kehlmann. I cannot write, and I cannot write dialogues. So I sometimes have an idea which is good, but then I don't know how to deal with it. Originally, I wanted to do this film in Spain 10 years ago, and I had written down some notes and some things that I could not use. So when I transferred it to Berlin, I immediately thought of Daniel Kehlmann, because I absolutely love his writing. The sense of humor, the absurdity, the intelligence in the dialogues, and in these very ambiguous, ambivalent characters that he has invented, has always impressed me a lot. And also, I know that he's a man who came from theater. He has written a couple of Weeklos, and he's Austrian. They have this dark sense of humor, which is very different to the German sense of humor, and that's exactly what I wanted. And we had met each other. We had known each other for quite some time and became friends. And still, I found it a bit, over the top and preposterous to ask him. But then I thought, I have nothing to lose. He's a kind and very polite man. He can say no. And so I called him up and said, listen, I have an idea. And he said, yeah, well, then tell me. And then after 15 minutes, he engaged and said, this is something that he enjoys, something that he has experienced in a different way, something that he could work with. So, and that was wonderful, because he invited me to be by his side. So I was amazed about how quick he is, how efficient he is in his head, and how he could filter ideas that I had, transformed them, and so it became a very symbiotic partnership, and we want to continue now. We have 2 new ideas that we want to work on, and thank God, because without him, this film would obviously not be there.
What you can tell us about your filming locations in Berlin?
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to spend most of the time in certain neighborhoods. We couldn't do it all in one. It is supposed to be the Prenzlauer Berg in the east, where I still live and have been living for 22 years. But we also jumped to the neighborhood which is very close, Mitte, the center. But then also we had to go, for logistical reasons, to jump to Kreuzberg. So the bar from the outside is real, from the inside it needed to be built. Then I got the set designer, another, expert and the best in her field is Susanne Hopf, who did the set design for many films by, for example, Andreas Dresen, and she is from the East, and so I knew that every single detail in an East Berlin bar she would know about, So we constructed it, and that was very helpful shooting wise, to be in a safe in a studio.
Your movie is very musical. Can you talk a little about your collaboration with the composers Maurice Friedrich and Jacob Krummerz?
Yes, I had known Jacob for quite some time. He's the brother of my partner, the producer Malte Grunert. Very connected in the music scene, and he had presented me Moritz Friedrich, artist named Sirius Mo, who is an electronic music artist in Berlin, very well known, and very with a huge knowledge about music, and not only about electronic music but also about Eastern German music. So he put me in touch then with other artists, and I got hold through him. I got hold of a song that sounds exactly like a ballad from the 70s, the GDR, and it was the first song that he had played to me, just to check if that's what I was looking for. And I said, bam, this is it. They used it for as a children's song with different lyrics. So we needed to change the lyrics and needed Peter Kurth to sing it. But also with the whistling, it has a sort of a Ennio Morricone Western kind of touch on top of the that GDR sound, and that's exactly what I was looking for. And other than that, music, I realized that with Marty Schenk, the editor, whenever we tried music score, like the typical score that you would imagine, it always destroyed the moment and it made it weaker. So the energy of the dialogues were not as creepy anymore. It always had the counter effect, Whenever you tried to push the emotion, it became less. So we said the only thing we want to hear is almost like an interior feverish sound and music in Daniel's head, so to say, and we realized that percussion is a good way to achieve that, but very subtle. So not that much was needed, and so the song at the end really stands out.
What autobiographical part did you bring to your character in this film?
Yeah, it was fun to play with my persona, to add some humiliations, personal, professional experiences that have been either nice or painful. The criticism that you get, all that was great ammunition for the neighbor, for Bruno.
Yeah.
So at the very, very beginning, I was thinking about another profession. I just wanted someone, in this case from the West, someone who is benefiting from everything that this modern life provides, He's a guy who travels and is more or less successful in what he does, and has that fancy apartment and a family, and is very self-centered. And I was thinking of a politician or a lawyer or something like that. And then I thought, no, it's my first film. I don't know about these worlds. Why not an actor? And then the next step was, well, why not me? Because then I can fill it with all the things that I have experienced, and yet I play a man who is very different to me. So that combination was
Nice.
fun.
What do you think people can learn from your film?
I'll learn. I don't know, but it's what I like about a certain kind of comedies is when comedy actually deals with important and serious subject matters, but it doesn't lose the tone of comedy, and that's what I wanted to achieve. So it's a dark comedy, but it deals with the changes in the cities, with gentrification, with the social imbalance, with the with the conflict that we still have in Germany between East and West. It is about failure in life, deception. It is about looking outside and looking inside. It's about how much do we know about our neighbors, how much do we know about our environment, and also how much do we know about ourselves.
After playing some movies in United States and in Europe, do you see important difference between to work on a film in USA in France, in Europe? Sorry.
Yeah, it can be. It depends on the size of the project. There's certain things that I could not do in Europe, or they wouldn't be done that way in Europe. If I think of something like Marvel, for example, this is a scale that is huge. But I always enjoy these experiences. The more diverse, the better. So I saw that there's a highly professional level at Marvel, for example, if you think of the actors, but also of everyone involved. So I was always very inspired, and it allows you to do something completely different. Also as an actor, to be experimenting with stuff that you normally cannot do. So I really enjoyed that. And then ultimately it is always the story has to be attractive. You have to see something in it that that triggers you. The character that you play, obviously too. It's in the script, and then it actually doesn't matter that much how big or how small something is. But something like Marvel can only be done on that big level, and it's sometimes also films that sometimes in Europe or in Germany you read a script. Let's say a period film, and it says 50 carriages, 500 horses, a couple of hundred, extras, and a castle, and and if the story needs that, then it is very disappointing if you arrive on set and there's a cottage and 2 horses, a donkey, no carriage, and 20 extras, no? And then you're supposed to create this this grand, idea that you read in the script, and if it's not there, then this is a problem. So sometimes you really enjoy if this if you see if you see the splendor and you shoot what you read. No?
Yeah. Do you have an anecdote to tell us about the shooting of this film?
It was Peter Kurth ended up saying it took him, because I could feel that after saying action, he always freezed a little bit. And at first he didn't want to say anything, but in fact I thought it would be funny to not say action, but I said in German mit Späßchen, in my Cologne dialect, and so he's really from the East.
Yeah.
And that was really like almost a Bruno Daniel moment. It was with him and me, because after a couple of weeks he told me, I cannot stand this Cologne happiness, this tone is horrible. Could you just say und bitte oder und Aktion? No? Und Späßchen mit Späßchen bitte was not something Peter liked.
Please, can you talk a little about how important is this film about the film industry?
Yeah, there's obviously criticism and a lot of irony when I deal with Daniel in the film. You know,
yes.
He's a special kind of actor who is, very exposed, and it makes me think of all the actors who are willing to expose themselves in an extreme way, and we see that with social media, what has been happening, and it's very worrying for me because actors by that, for example, lose their mystery. It happens to me that I sometimes watch a film and I'm distracted because I think, oh, this guy got divorced and she had her second baby, and
yes.
So actors then by that attitude lose their mystery. And on the other hand, it's interesting because people have that hunger for gossip and want to know about every intimate detail. So on both sides, this, I think, is kind of creepy these days.
What did you learn and retain from playing and directing your first film?
Oh, I learned a lot along the way. I learned about writing, the structure, timing, pace, how can you keep up the energy if you are in a huis clos? It's difficult to manage that that the whole story, the structure, the dialogues always push you further and further, and you can keep up the right tension and energy. And how do you do it so that these characters become human? That they don't remain a cliche, so that there's a journey of both becoming humans, and so that was fascinating. Also giving it the rhythm. It's like if you have a concerto and you in the editing, you decide then where's the crescendo, where's a pause, where do we need to speed it up, This was incredibly fascinating as an experience, and then also the subtleties in the mixing. At the very end when the film is actually there, but then you add like sounds and how much a scene changes if you hear a truck or a church bell, or all these elements which make the film then even richer, and sometimes you can even change a complete scene by one tiny little subtle detail. This was all an incredibly fulfilling process for me to learn that.
Have you some words to say in French for your French fans?
J'espère que vous aimez bien mon film Next Door. Ça sort le 29 de décembre. C'est mon début. Et j'espère que vous allez le voir et vous l'aimez bien. À bientôt.
And my last questions, can you talk a little about your next movie, The Kingsman, and which are your current projects, please?
Yes, I gonna watch it pretty soon. I still haven't seen the entire film,
okay.
And we're gonna promote it, and it's gonna come out soon in England. It was again one of these experiences for me that were like being in a lunar park, like it's a gigantic project.
Yes.
I am very in awe of what Matthew Vaughn has created. I mean, to create a franchise is quite something, and it's the level of perfection and detail is mind-blowing, because the man has it all in his head, and every single shot was very demanding, visually, choreography-wise, in every single detail you can imagine. So, I play a peculiar part in it, pulling the strings in World War I. It's reinventing the history in a way. It reminded me. It's a very different kind of film, but it reminded me of *Inglourious Basterds*, where Tarantino then reinvented history. In the Second World War, Matthew Vaughn goes back to the first one, and I hope you will enjoy it and see what he has done with it. And I'm afraid I cannot tell you that much more.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.